At the core of human history lies a hidden truth, waiting to be unveiled. Picture a group of ordinary, yet fearless people, united by a faith that defied the mightiest empire of its time. What drove these men and women to take such risks? What secrets fueled their beliefs? As the shadows of the past intertwine with the light of hope, one must wonder, how did it all begin? Around every corner, clues are left by those who came before. What do the ancient texts tell us about the origins of Christianity? And more importantly, why does this story still resonate so strongly today? Prepare for a journey that will reveal not just events, but also the emotions, struggles, and victories that shape this faith. We will uncover mysteries, explore historical figures, and discover how, amidst adversity, a new belief emerged. Are you ready to dive into the narrative that changed the world? Then let's explore together this hidden truth that transformed lives and continents. In the first century, the world was vastly different from what we know today. The Roman Empire dominated vast regions, including Palestine, where Christianity began to take root. The socio-political environment was complex, with tensions among various cultures and religions. Judaism, already centuries old, was one of the primary beliefs of the time, deeply influencing the rise of Christianity. Additionally, a mix of other religions and philosophies coexisted, creating a melting pot of ideas. Roman society was characterized by a strong sense of order and control, yet there was space for diverse religious practices. The Romans were known for their tolerance of various cults, as long as they did not challenge the emperor's authority. This meant that new ideas, like those from early Christianity, could be both welcomed and viewed with suspicion, depending on the context. For many Jews, the promise of a Messiah brought hope in times of oppression, but this expectation also sparked conflict. The interaction between Jews and Romans was tense, especially in Jerusalem. The desire for religious and political freedom among Jews often clashed with Roman imposition. This atmosphere of tension, coupled with the search for new spiritual meaning, created fertile ground for the emergence of Christianity. As Jesus' followers began to gather and share their beliefs, they did so in a context of challenges and hopes. Moreover, Roman rule brought with it a system of roads and communication that facilitated the spread of ideas. Paul's letters, for example, were crucial in propagating Christianity in various cities of the empire. Christian communities began forming in different regions, each adapting the messages to their local realities, yet always under the influence of the socio-political environment of the time. Thus, early Christianity did not emerge in a vacuum. It was shaped by a series of historical, social, and religious factors that influenced its first followers and their beliefs. This complexity is key to understanding how the new religion began to establish and grow in such a diverse world. The roots of Christianity are deeply intertwined with Judaism. Jesus and his first followers were Jews, and their religious practices reflected this heritage. The Old Testament, sacred to Jews, is also a fundamental part of the Christian Bible. Jesus' teachings often engaged with Jewish traditions, reinterpreting concepts like love, compassion, and justice. Therefore, the Christian message did not emerge from nothing. It was built upon the foundation of Jewish beliefs. On the other hand, the Hellenistic environment also played a crucial role in the development of early Christianity. After the conquests of Alexander the Great, Greek culture spread throughout the Mediterranean, bringing with it new ideas and philosophies. Stoicism, for instance, with its emphasis on reason and ethics, influenced how some Christians thought about morality and human nature. This blending of Jewish and Hellenistic ideas helped shape the early doctrines of the Christian faith. Additionally, the Greek language became the primary means of communication among the first Christians. The Gospels, written in Greek, were accessible to a broader audience, allowing the message of Jesus to reach not only Jews, but also Gentiles. This accessibility was vital for the expansion of Christianity, as Christian ideas could be shared within a multicultural context. Hellenistic philosophies also provided a framework for understanding concepts such as divinity and the afterlife. By incorporating these ideas, Christianity was able to engage with the culture of the time, attracting new followers who were drawn to these existential questions. Thus, the interaction between Judaism and Hellenistic influences created a rich and diverse foundation for the formation of Christian beliefs. Through this intertwining of traditions, early Christianity emerged not just as a continuation of Judaism, but as a new interpretation that sought to answer the questions of the time. This dynamic between the old and the new was essential for building a Christian identity that, even in its early stages, demonstrated its ability to adapt and evolve. The Gospels are the narratives that tell us about the life and teachings of Jesus. There are 4 canonical Gospels: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, each with its own perspective and style. The question of the authorship of these texts is intriguing and complex, as many of the authors were not eyewitnesses to the events they described. The dating of the Gospels also varies, with Mark generally considered the earliest, written around 70 AD, while John is seen as the last, possibly written at the end of the 1st century. Each Gospel was written in a different context, reflecting the concerns and communities for which they were intended. For example, the Gospel of Matthew is addressed to a Jewish audience, aiming to show how Jesus fulfilled Old Testament prophecies. Luke, on the other hand, with a more Gentile audience in mind, emphasizes the universality of Jesus' message and his love for all, regardless of origin. The question of sources is also important. Scholars believe that the Gospels may have shared some common sources, such as the famous Q source, which is a collection of sayings of Jesus. This interdependence raises questions about the accuracy and interpretation of the accounts. As each author chose to tell the story of Jesus, the differences in the narratives can offer us a richer and more complex view of his life and teachings. Furthermore, there are the apocryphal Gospels, which, although not included in the canon, offer valuable perspectives on early Christianity. Texts such as the Gospel of Thomas and the Gospel of Mary reveal the diversity of beliefs and interpretations that existed at the time. The exclusion of these texts from the official canon makes us reflect on the issues of authority and orthodoxy that were at play during the formation of Christianity. Finally, the analysis of the Gospels and their authorship not only helps us better understand the figure of Jesus, but also reveals the roots of the Christian faith and how it began to take shape. The different approaches of the authors reveal the richness and complexity of early Christianity, showing how the message of Jesus was shaped and interpreted in a world full of challenges and change. The development of Christian doctrine is a captivating subject, as it reveals how the beliefs we know today were shaped over time. In the early centuries, the Christian community was quite diverse, with varying interpretations of who Jesus was and what his messages meant. The concept of the Trinity, for example, didn't emerge overnight. It was intensely debated among church leaders who sought to understand how the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit related to each other. This quest for a clear definition was crucial for establishing a common identity among Christians. Another important point is the nature of Christ. Early Christians had different views on whether Jesus was truly divine, human, or a blend of both. Some groups, like the Gnostics, believed that matter was evil, and therefore Jesus couldn't have been entirely human. These debates caused divisions and were essential in forming an orthodox doctrine that could unite believers around a shared understanding of Christ's divinity. Additionally, the question of salvation also underwent a process of refinement. In the early days, ideas about how salvation could be attained varied greatly. Some believed it was necessary to strictly follow Jewish law, while others argued that faith in Jesus was the only way. Over time, the emphasis on faith and grace, as taught by apostles like Paul, began to prevail, shaping how Christians understand salvation to this day. Another aspect to consider is how doctrines were influenced by external factors, such as Greek culture and contemporary philosophies. Hellenistic language and concepts helped church leaders express their beliefs more accessibly. This blending of ideas allowed Christianity to spread not just among Jews, but also among Gentiles, making it a more universal religion. Finally, it's important to highlight that the development of Christian doctrine was not a linear process. Dialogue and disputes among different groups and leaders were constant. As communities faced new challenges, such as heresies and social changes, doctrines evolved, becoming more defined and consolidated over the centuries. The persecutions faced by Christians in the early centuries were a decisive factor in shaping the religion's identity. From the beginning, Christians were viewed with suspicion, particularly by Roman authorities, who saw the new movement as a threat to public order and traditional religion. Persecutions not only tested the believers' faith, but also helped consolidate the Christian community, as those who remained steadfast in their beliefs grew even closer. During the reigns of emperors like Nero and Domitian, Christians endured brutal tortures and executions. These persecutions, though horrific, also fostered a strong sense of solidarity among Christ's followers. Many became martyrs, and their stories inspired others to stand firm in their faith. This helped create a powerful narrative of sacrifice and devotion that became central to Christian spirituality. Moreover, the persecutions prompted deep reflection on the nature of faith and Christian identity. Christians began to ask themselves what it truly meant to follow Jesus in a hostile world. This introspection led to a strengthening of their beliefs and practices, solidifying a clearer, more distinct identity. The need to defend against accusations and misunderstandings also motivated the writing of texts that helped explain and justify the Christian faith. As the persecutions continued, Christianity began to spread, not just as a religion, but as a resilient community. Christians became known for their solidarity and compassion, helping each other through tough times. This behavior attracted attention, and instead of reducing the number of followers, the challenges they faced often drew in new converts. Over time, the changing stance of Roman rulers toward Christianity, especially after the Edict of Milan in 313 AD, allowed the religion to consolidate further. Christianity shifted from a persecuted faith to the official religion of the Roman Empire. This transformation not only ensured Christianity's survival, but also enabled its expansion and influence in new regions, shaping the history of Europe and the Western world for centuries. The Council of Nicaea, held in 325 AD, was a crucial milestone in Christian history. Convened by Emperor Constantine, the council's primary goal was to address theological disputes causing divisions among Christians. One of the most debated issues was the nature of Christ, particularly regarding his divinity and humanity. The council sought to establish consensus on these matters, thereby strengthening the Church's unity during a period of growth and expansion. The bishops at the council intensely debated the Arian controversy, which argued that Jesus, although the Son of God, was not of the same essence as the Father. This position was deemed heretical by many, and the council decided in a pivotal moment to affirm that Jesus was of the same substance as the Father, known as homoousios. This definition not only helped solidify the doctrine of the Trinity, but also set a standard for Christian orthodoxy that would endure for centuries. Another significant decision of the Council of Nicaea was the establishment of the Easter calendar, aiming to unify the celebration of Christ's resurrection throughout the Church. Until then, different Christian communities celebrated Easter on various dates. The new rule established that Easter would be celebrated on the first Sunday after the first full moon of spring. This standardization helped create a sense of unity among Christians, making celebrations more cohesive. Beyond theological issues, the Council of Nicaea also had significant implications for the formation of the New Testament. While the Council did not finalize a list of books to comprise the New Testament, It helped reinforce the acceptance of certain texts already widely recognized and used in Christian communities. This validation of texts was a crucial step in forming what would become the Christian canon. The decisions made at Nicaea had a lasting impact on the Christian faith. Affirming Christ's divinity and establishing a more cohesive canon helped shape Christian identity in a world where diversity of beliefs and practices was the norm. The Council not only addressed immediate issues, but also laid the groundwork for future theological debates and contributed to building a church that would become one of the most influential institutions in Western history. The formation of the New Testament canon was a gradual and complex process involving many debates and discussions among Christian leaders. While some texts were already widely accepted and used in Christian communities, such as the Gospels and Paul's letters, there was no definitive consensus on which writings should be considered canonical. The Council of Nicaea, though not finalizing this list, was an important step toward its consolidation. The criteria used to determine canonicity included apostolicity, meaning whether a text was attributed to an apostle or someone close to an apostle. Additionally, the widespread acceptance and liturgical use of texts in Christian communities were also significant factors. Thus, works that were read and admired by many Christians had a greater chance of being included in the canon. Another important aspect of canon formation was the rejection of texts considered apocryphal, meaning those that did not meet the criteria of apostolicity or were deemed heretical. This led to the exclusion of works that presented distorted views of Jesus' life and teachings, helping to preserve Christian orthodoxy. The definition of the canon was, therefore, a way to protect the faith against erroneous interpretations. The process of forming the canon extended over several centuries. Although the Council of Nicaea was fundamental, the New Testament canon was only officially recognized in its final form in the 4th century, during the Council of Carthage. This definitive ratification brought a sense of security and unity to the Church, which now had a solid textual foundation on which to build its doctrines and practices. The definition of the canon also had a significant impact on Christian literature and Western culture. With a recognized set of sacred texts, Christianity was able to establish itself as a cohesive religious tradition, influencing art, philosophy, and morality throughout the centuries. Thus, the formation of the canon was not merely an act of text selection, but a moment that shaped the identity and worldview of millions. And so, we come to the end of this journey through the origins of Christians. But before we close, let's reflect. What do these early followers of Christ teach us about faith and resilience? They faced unimaginable challenges but kept hope alive. Have you ever thought about how these ancient lessons still apply to your life today? These men and women not only changed the course of history, but also left us a legacy that continues to inspire millions. What are the values you hold dear that might reflect their faith? Remember, the search for truth is not just a historical journey, but a personal one. How about sharing in the comments how the story of the early Christians has impacted your view of life? And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. See you next time.